And we are live. Good morning to everybody who is just going to be getting here and joining us today. It is your hosts, John Oliver, the composer, and me, Shane Yirak. And we're here for another dialogue. It's a very interesting discussion. We're excited to share it with you. And before we go too far, John, how are you doing?
Doing pretty well, yeah. We've got out on the West Coast here, well, West Coast north of you, quite a bit far
The
north.
opposite coast, we've got the whole coast in between us, just about.
Yeah, it's just this huge long coast that goes from California to Vancouver. And then if anybody from California or from the States on the West Coast has ever been up our way, it's kind of a weird experience because you come up to Vancouver and then all of a sudden the roads start to disappear and you have to go on these very small roads up as you go further north from Vancouver being only about 30 minutes from the border. Most of Canada is actually about 30 minutes from the border. So it's a really interesting thing. We up here have a climate. This is a totally off topic, by the way. It's the Northwest, we call it. It's north of the Columbia River. And so we here consider ourselves all this kind of place that we used to call, what do we call it? Columbia something?
Right.
Anyway, it encompasses Northern Oregon, Washington State, and British Columbia, because we all have the same weather here.
Yeah.
And as soon as you get to Southern Oregon, it starts to change and you get that Northern California weather, and it's a different climate and whatnot. So we all have this thing about, gray skies and lots of rain as our thing. Today it's not raining, it's sunny, but it's cool. It's like 24 degrees is going to be the high today, which amounts to about 72 or something, comfy. Fahrenheit. Yeah.
Down
So
here
anyway,
Southern California, it's like so freaking humid. I'm just like, we're getting that. I can tell that super El Nino is coming because the air humidity has just gone. The temperature and everything hasn't really changed, but I'm already glistening and I'm just standing here. So if it is interesting, just I don't know. I always think it's remarkable how big and how much there is to learn about our planet.
Right? Let's talk about learning.
Let's talk about learning, because that is what we're here to talk about today. And before we go any farther, I just want to give credit to the person who made the source material for our video today. And I want to recommend and say I'm going to put this content in our post later. I'll send it to John so he can provide it as well. Ashley Embers on YouTube. Fantastic video essay, and we're going to be using excerpts from her video for this conversation. So, in general, I would say this conversation is not only about education, but how quickly effects on education can influence an entire generation, and how I would say would you say reckless use of these new methods is having major impacts?
Yeah, for sure. It's I think the key word here is convenience. That the technology that we use these days is just a little bit too convenient, and the results of that convenience are a generation of kids who don't ever actually learn how to do stuff because it's all provided for them, spoon-fed to them.
Yeah.
And that's been increasing since the 1980s, when Neil Postman wrote a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death. Or did he write Post-Capitalism? I can't remember. I might be confusing the authors, but both of those two really great books if you've never read them. Amusing Ourselves to Death and Post-Capitalism. So that's what it's about. It's about this convenience of technology, where you hand a piece of technology to a kid because it's supposed to be educational and or entertaining, and it'll do a better job than you as a parent can do, apparently, but not.
Yes, absolutely. I think that you really nailed it. And the best thing I can do is I want to give us I'm going to show everybody the intro to this video. It's a bunch of small clips stitched together. One of the things, and I have a lot of timestamps, so we're going to kind of pause between this and let the video kind of guide our discussion John has some notes. I have some thoughts, and we'll just kind of get through this whole video, and we'll talk about what I kind of comes to mind as we go is this paradoxical situation that we're seeing where you have supposedly these two things. So I'll go ahead and pull this up, and we're just going to watch a couple, 50 seconds, 59 seconds of this video here together, and this will get you guys kind of like a primer. And we'll go.
I'm an elementary school teacher, and students have accidentally called me different names. Mom, Mama. But today, a student accidentally called me Alexa.
Honey, teaching kids isn't the same anymore. I gotta keep the kids constantly engaged. Not even just engaged, but almost overstimulated. Girl, bye, I got kids saying 6-7 repeatedly. They don't even know how to spell 6-7.
Kids can't do basic things anymore.
We have zero problem-solving skills. And it's not even just the inability to do work. It's the inability to follow any directions.
We're at the point in the literacy crisis where whole classrooms of kids are struggling with reading. In like 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. I don't know.
Kids are not being taught well enough to even work at Taco Bell.
The iPad in every classroom ruined education. Not only do they have screen time all the time at home, they also always have a screen at school.
We are scared because we are watching critical thinking disappear in real time.
As somebody that taught high school, we should all be scared.
Every generation has had.
That's a great opener, I have to say. That summarizes. I can't hear you, Shane.
I muted myself. Sorry. I was going to say, John, I'd love to hear your thoughts just coming off of that little rapid fire clip there.
Yeah, so that is a great intro. She's basically done a collage of some of the interviews that she features during her half-hour special on this topic. And that pretty well sums it up. She's given these little clips of people that I don't know where she gathered all this from.
It's all TikToks.
Yeah, they do look like they're all TikToks, but she'll go on to say a number of things in her half-hour video that are right on point, and that really emphasize the situation that a lot of people find themselves in now. But this is a long time coming, I have to say. As we go through the problems and the results of these technological interventions and the possible solutions, I do have to say, coming from my perspective as a late, I will put the word late boomer on it, because I was at the tail end of that era. As you
qualifier is important.
Yeah. So I've kind of seen this happen over a couple of generations at least, and it's been a slow decline in education that started with Ronald Reagan and the privatization of schools in the first place, and the degradation of public schools. The gutting of public funding for education. It did all start before this technological intervention, but the technology has had a completely different accelerant, sort of like an accelerant in a fire effect on the degradation of the capacity for people to learn. So
would you say that it's more that the backstop itself was just dismantled? So when we threw this new thing, that's kind of the way I'm interpreting it too, is that it's like there should be something to be like, oh, whoa, but it's just so rotten that I really think that there isn't that backstop.
Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by a backstop, but here it's just a basic concept, right? When I was growing up, nobody would ever admit that they couldn't do something. The norm was you tried to do stuff.
Yeah.
That's just what you did. But now it's flipped completely on its head. And almost every young person I run across, for example, teaching music, will say, oh, I can't do that. And I'll say, well, that's right. You can't do it now. And if you try hard and work at it, then you will become familiar with whatever it is you need to do, and you'll get good at it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I can't do it. That is their basic approach to life is I can't do it. And that's because the computer does it. The iPad does it. It's all done for me. I don't need to do anything. In fact, I am not an authority. Of course you're not an authority. Authority is something that you gain through life experience and so on. No, they don't even think that exists.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, life experience is no longer a factor. That's bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I'm like kind of like I'm like the way you are. Like, I want to build a bookshelf. Shane, you've never built a bookshelf. I've got a saw. I've got a table. I've got wood. I'm going to build a freaking bookshelf. It's the first one's ugly. The second one's uglier. The third one looks pretty good.
Right.
But it's because you got to do it. You know, I still have the first birdhouse I made in my yard. It is horrible. But I leave it there to remind myself that I built the box once and now they're nicer.
Right.
That I really do think is missing. And this is this first part. And before, if you've got anything, you know, you want to add, I want to play a little clip where she's talking about literacy rates. And there's a couple good quotes in there that I want us to cover. It's going to be about 50 seconds of clip here.
Let's do it.
All right. Go ahead and pull this up for us.
Kids' behavior in the classroom has only continued to deteriorate since we last talked about this, and that's despite the fact that there's been growing awareness and press coverage over this issue over the past few years, which you would expect to help redirect the efforts of parents and caregivers. Alas, we haven't seen any noticeable progress forward. In fact, certain aspects are only getting worse.
All across the country, we got teachers saying the same thing, that these kids are not in the level or on the level of the grade that they're in, that their handwriting is crazy, that they have zero retention and zero access to imagination. They will practice a subject or a skill the whole week, and then when it comes to testing, the children draw a blank. They don't know. They don't know what they're supposed to do.
National test scores highlight this urgency. The latest results from the National Assessment of Education Progress reveals low in English and math at grades 4, 8, and 12. The scores show that 1/3 of high school seniors lack basic reading skills. That's right, Gen Alpha has entered high school and is bringing the grade point average down with them. And so the same kids who suffered through school from home during COVID in their early years are still moving up grades without catching up. And why is that? Well, first of all, Gen Alpha's
So, whoa, that's interesting. I'll have to deal with that here in a second when I take this off the screen. John, your thoughts on that while I, kind of.
Well, it's a confluence of so many factors that's just hit like a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
COVID hit education like a hammer, right? And it took away the social interaction from which most young people actually gather a lot of learning. A lot of learning in school actually happens by the interaction of students with each other. But so even before COVID, there were devices in the classrooms, right?
Yeah.
And kids were fixated on screens already, right? And so they were already learning less from each other. And then COVID hit and they couldn't even be in a room with other people. And so they were exclusively learning from screens. And they became more and more isolated socially. And so the whole, it's like a huge windstorm or something. It's like clobbered them. And they believe that they have no agency. They can't do anything. And even after they've been maybe given instructions by a teacher or they try to follow instructions on their screen, their basic approach is, I don't understand, I can't learn.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm exaggerating. Of course, there's always exceptions. There are always exceptional kids. But the general vibe is, the screen has all the knowledge and all I need to do is read what's on the screen and it remains like isolated from me on the screen. And if I regurgitate it to where necessary to a teacher and then completely forget it, then I'll be okay. Which, to tell you the truth, I mean, it was the same in our time. When I went to school, a lot of study was just memorizing a bunch of stuff and regurgitating it back on a test. But this is different because that's the only thing going on. Whereas when I was going to school, you eventually started, to write essays, and in anything that wasn't sort of just memory based, like memorizing, I don't know, in chemistry, memorizing the formulas and all of that.
Yes.
You had.
I understand that chemistry was the one class in college that I was spending. Everyone's like, in college, I spent, 12 hours preparing. I didn't sleep. I was in the cafe pounding cappuccinos. Like, that's what I did for chemistry. Like, sometimes you do need to do that to get a C+. Like, that is, there is limits to what we're good at. Like, absolutely.
They didn't even let me in. Biology 9 was the only thing that I could do in sciences, and that was it. After that, it was studying 4 languages, history, geography was a science, supposed science. I liked rocks. So for me, that's as far as I got in terms of sciences. So anyway, but the point here really is that this behavioral thing that occurs because of the entertainment, the constant entertainment and addictive quality of the technologies that are in the iPads, on the phones. It's addictive technology. We've already talked about this in previous episodes.
Yeah.
How it creates an addiction to the device where the only thing they care about, the developers of Facebook and all social media, is that you stay there as long as possible and you click as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Because that pays for the advertising, and they don't care about humanity. And they've even basically said
so.
Yeah. So we are being used. Humanity is being used by these companies, these social media companies, right? Which is, folks, that's why we're here having conversations on Substack. And why Shane's other interest is developing YouTube, a place where people can actually engage off this grid of control, right? Although there's control everywhere, we know that. But so that's the main problem is that we're being becoming addicted to the technology, and the thing that parents need to do is stand up and set an example by reducing their dependency on these devices. Like, don't pick up the phone and take pictures and do everything with the phone with your kid. Leave the phones at home and go walk in the forest for 2 hours.
Yeah, right? I do it every morning. I don't, not 2 hours, but I do go walk in the forest every morning. And I even made a short video this morning telling people to come watch this show. So hopefully some of you guys saw that video and came to watch the show, because, this one thing about the dialogue, I've done a lot of things, but the dialogue has been retained because I think it's one of the most important shows and endeavors that I've been able to be part of with John, because it's a different kind of show. It's something where we can't necessarily control the internet, but we can control whether or not we have these discussions in our lives. And that's what me and John try to do, is give you guys a solid foundation to go and have a dialogue. We're just kind of starting it for you. So, and in this next quote that we have here on the screen really goes to kind of bolster everything that you were saying, John. And when we look at this quote, and I'll go ahead and read it as well here. Let me see if I can sharpen that a little bit. But so with the way social media algorithms work, students are being fed nonstop content that's not only entertaining, but also specifically tailored to their interests. Danabring is the studier here, the publisher. That personalized experience has made traditional academic tasks like reading and writing feel much less engaging, right? That is the danger. That is the core danger here that we're seeing is, everyone's heard the whole goldfish attention span. Well, a goldfish doesn't need to think critically. A goldfish needs to be like, oh, can I breathe here? Cool. Like that's what a goldfish does.
We are not goldfish.
Yes. But we're not goldfish. We're human beings. The thing that we've evolved to keep us alive is the brain. So by melting the brain, we're creating this like, sludge in there that is not thinking critically. They want, it's addiction. It's dopamine. It's understand, like, don't make no mistake. I think these companies understand the chemistry. I think they've done studies privately. I think they are well aware of what they're leveraging in their algorithm, why they feed you these things in order. You have to understand the brain chemistry to tailor your algorithm for engagement.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say that, tailoring your brain chemistry for engagement is what they are doing.
Yes.
And they don't want you to know the scientific research that proves the following couple of really important things. So people who do research into brain functioning have proven that when you read a book that's printed on paper, you can read at least 2 times faster than reading on a screen, because the screen emits light, and the light has an effect on your eye. These are people who study your eye and how your eye perceives things and how quickly your brain can process information coming in through your eyes. That's how scientific this is. And a book, you can read a book much faster. You can gain a concept much faster. You can also easily move back and forth in the text, whereas on a screen, when you scroll, it has this effect on your eyes because of the light emitting from the screen, right? So these tests have all been done and shown that your capacity to retain information is improved when you read a book, and you can read faster. The other thing that's been easily proven is that when you have to think about a topic and create with a blank piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, your brain has to work.
Yeah. And I think you go back to the mention of one of the things was imagination.
Right.
One of the things we talk about here all the time is the power of being creative, of creating. When I was a kid, I would write all kinds of stories. I had imaginations. I was a Star Wars guy. So I wrote in my own mind, my own adventures, and I would go on my own missions. I would save, the clone troopers from becoming stormtroopers because they didn't deserve it. Things like that. Like, these are the things that make you want to write music instead of just listen to music, right? Like, oh, I could create my own music. I can do that. When we're seeing this loss, I don't think there is a greater loss in education. All other things could be remedied through imagination. You can rediscover anything, but you can't rediscover the ability to discover, because that you need it. It's inherent. It's evolution. And in sci-fi, I'm a big sci-fi guy. Okay, I love all kinds of sci-fi. Star Wars, when they were just getting all that really cool animation, in the early 2000s, and they did the Phantom Menace, and I know a lot of people are like, "Those movies suck." I'm like, I get it. A New Hope, 4 through 6, fantastic. I'm never gonna argue against that. The Vader redemption arc, but it's important to have the context. Why? Who is Vader? Who's Anakin? It's good. It's good stuff. And the animation was exciting. It was new. And I loved it. They came out with these shows. I watched it. As I've grown older, I've gotten into more of the nitty gritty, dark sci-fi kind of stuff that's for adults. But the one thing that has always carried over for me that I see in sci-fi is that the first thing the bad guys do, or the mistake that sends people spiraling, is the loss of knowledge, or the loss of, a free education system. In Star Wars, if you go into the Empire and you explore that a little bit, they have pretty much there's a curriculum, right? You're a citizen of the Empire. In one of the sci-fi worlds I like called Warhammer, they are so far into the future, and they had basically given all of their knowledge to colonize space. They put all their knowledge into these STCs, or basically AIs that could do anything they needed, and they sent everyone out. And then what happens? They lost everything. because no one actually knew how to do anything when they started to lose these things. This is the cascade event. This is, for me, we're on the precipice of going there, but we're not there yet because there's still people that know what education should be. And that's where I think that it's going to kind of feel almost sort of hopeless later as we go through and listen to some of these teachers and how they talk about these things. But, you know, I do think that, again, all of this kind of goes back to policy, how we choose to let ourselves be governed. If we choose to participate in governments that, you know, put people in charge of the WWE or Raw in charge of our education, you know, that's exactly the kind of people we want. Sweaty men choreographed to, you know, jump and elbow each other, taking charge of the Department of Education. So you know, that, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say that, you know, it's interesting that I view this whole trajectory as moving away from a kind of balance between your human mind interacting with other created things. Okay. For example, when you read a novel and the novel describes people having a relationship to nature, in times past, you would then put the novel down and go walk in the forest.
Yes.
So the act of reading a novel, you are putting yourself into someone else's shoes. You're putting yourself into someone else's. You're interacting with someone else's imagination. So you are engaged in a relationship with the other that is defined more or less by the novel you're reading. The author is controlling, in a sense, your imagination and directing your imagination to tell the story. Then, when you put down the book and you walk outside and you go in the forest, you are free. You are now a free agent. You're completely free. Nobody's controlling the way you think. You're in nature, and now your mind can open up. So this influence of having, you know, great minds interact with great minds through knowledge and novels and research and so on nourishes your brain. But if you don't have that moment where you can walk in the forest and let your mind go free, that act of walking in the forest or just down the street, or even just, in my case, going to the bathroom and I get a great musical idea, you know, it's just the brain has to relax and have no pressure and no anxiety. The brain has to relax to nourish the imagination. And I don't think kids get a chance to relax.
Not if you're being stimulated all the time.
Correct.
Like it's even a thing where, you know, you think, oh, well, I'm relaxing, I'm watching TV. You're really not. Like your brain is firing like crazy. You're getting all of this different stuff going on. You're seeing violence, you're seeing, you know, romance, you're seeing flashing lights, right? Like all these things are happening. And sometimes it's like, if you're sitting by yourself, you're going to process one thing at a time, right? And so I think what we're going to talk about next is exactly that. And I'm going to play a little bit of a clip here. And it's about, basically, they start to talk about how AI comes into this picture.
Right.
And personally, you know, what's crazy to me is, like, I am pretty familiar with AI. The fact that they use ChatGPT of all things is like disgusting to me. It's literally, you know, to use a phrase I'm quite fond of, it's like dog water. But the water you've had after the dog has drank, right? Like not water you're giving your dog, but like, you know, full of slobber. That's the equivalent in the AI world. That's ChatGPT in my mind. So let's go ahead and just watch this.
Yeah.
This portion here, you know, we'll kind of let play a second, and they do a really good job putting together some clips here talking about some anecdotes from teachers and whatnot.
Thinking to AI chatbots, relying on them to answer even the most basic of questions.
So I just want to read what was on that screen because I think that was important, and I don't know how well everyone can see. It says, my kids spent all morning ask ChatGPT 4-year-old style questions, and it answers patiently, thoroughly, and sounding like a real human. I'm both relieved and terrified. Yes, that is the right reaction, I think, there.
Yeah.
AI chatbots, relying on them to answer even the most basic of questions.
The kids are using ChatGPT instead of Google. I teach high school, and so when I tell you that young people are using ChatGPT for everything, I mean everything. And I'm working with mostly 9th graders this year, and like, it's pretty common for 9th graders to come into high school and not necessarily know like how to fact check or how to research, but they don't even try. Like the other day, a kid asked me a question, I gave them the answer, and I watched them use ChatGPT to fact check me like right in front of me, and there was no shame. Like, it's just normal to them.
This increased use of touchscreens specifically has also compromised children's motor development, as tap-based interaction doesn't build the hand strength needed to support proper writing skills, which are already declining. As said here, lessons on Chromebooks and smartboards reduce the time students spend on paper and pencil activities. In an era in which students struggle with writing their own names, increased hands-on learning is crucial to accustoming Gen Alpha to engagement outside of a touchscreen and developing fine motor skills that will set them up for success in their educational journey.
So, that's pretty jarring. I don't, particularly where she's talking about, hey, I gave them an answer and they fact checked me with ChatGPT. Right. That for me blows my mind. I would not trust a single thing ChatGPT tells me ever. Right. Like, I think it's literally, it's such a freakish and bad AI.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's terrible. And the lack of being able to write because you scroll. It's interesting for me because I personally will not remember if I type something. I always have a notebook or a piece of paper, always, because my mind, I forget stuff all the time. But that's why I write it, because it's formative. It helps me reinforce what I need to do. Right. I've gone through 3 notebooks in the last year, and I don't even go back and reread them. It's just, I need to do this today. Let me write it down. That's just wild to me that they, are fact checking their teacher. With GPT. And these people are my age, right? So this is where it really started to kind of strike me is I was thinking about this. These people, and you start to see these teachers, they are the generation of people that went through school like me. I came into school, they were still using projectors when I was in, elementary school, using the expo marker on there. We did everything on paper. By the time I was kind of coming into middle school, they were trying out the first smart boards, things like that. There was maybe, 2 or 3 Chromebooks in the room maximum. And then by the time my brother is in school, he's about 3 years younger than me. They're now talking about putting iPad for every student and things like that. They implemented these things. And now I'm just sitting here, looking and just wondering, these are the people who told, when they wanted to be a teacher, right? These are the people who wanted to be in this room teaching other people. They saw where education was going. They thought they could make a difference. Right. And to see these people just like, you see it in their eyes. It's just like, they're like, I don't know. I mean, how do you deal with that? Because you see these kids maybe 90 minutes a day. Right. There's nothing you can do. They spend more time doom scrolling when they get home than they do with you. And they're thinking about doom scrolling when they're sitting there with you. And there's nothing you can do as a human being that's more stimulating than watching this freaking 45-year-old sweaty man in his basement playing Call of Duty. There's nothing it is literally like that.
One of the hilarious moments that you probably don't need to, it was just a moment in her podcast, where she said, and then you have students who they're handed a book and they try to scroll the book.
Right? I just
like they're so unfamiliar with a book that they pick up a book and they try to scroll it with their fingers. How come it doesn't work? Now, that is a total takeover. There you go. That's a total technological takeover, right? So, and that is the problem that people are. There's another moment where this male teacher is interviewed, and he says, I gave the students a very simple task. Maybe you're going to show this one.
I probably, the one where he's writing my camera was following me because I was so animated trying to flip the book. I had to put
it's the one where he says the task was to write a sentence twice.
Yes, I believe I have that one, but just in case it's not on the timestamp, just give him a quick
just incredible. The teacher says, okay, I want you to write the same sentence twice. And literally a third of the class did not know what to do. Write the same sentence twice.
No.
But do you want me to write it on all of the lines? Well, you write it twice. So do I start on the top line? Just absurd questions as though there's something missing from the instructions. No, the instructions are very simple. Write it twice. Oh, yeah, you just have to play him. You have to try to find that.
We'll find him. I know exactly who you're talking about. I think he's in this. He's in one of the sections here.
Yeah.
And I do think the most powerful part of this is she's brilliant lady. But watching these teachers talk was most impactful for me, because it's like, this is like the front lines.
Yeah, exactly.
The battle's going on. So this next one we have here is basically they're talking a little bit about how these kids are almost like they need therapy here. Like they're not even getting the basic emotional experience that these teachers kind of feel like they're being therapists and not teachers. So we'll go ahead and play this for a minute or two, and we'll talk about it as well.
I know stuff. Really?
Because what else do you think happens when children are taught to turn to screens whenever life becomes boring, frustrating?
Just want to read this again, because if you can't see here, it says, could Gen Alpha's behavioral issues be related to a giant unregulated still face experiment? Parents staring at phones and not responding to cues.
Correct.
Or stressful. As this parent shares, my son, Gen Alpha, was upset the other day due to an incident in school. He refused to share it with me despite repeated asks, and he was sulking. I stopped and just sat next to him. He said, let me watch TV, I will feel better. When they argue and fight with parents, friends, or when they are restless, fragile, or overwhelmed, they just reach out to the numbing glow because they don't know how to process overwhelming emotions. We see this all the time, right? A child is screaming in the grocery store, so a mom throws a screen in front of their face. And I hate to...
Okay, so, this is addiction. Drug addiction dulls your senses because you're depressed or whatever it is that's causing great upset that you're not willing to deal with. So you turn to drinking excessive alcohol drinking, or you turn to drugs. You turn to something that numbs your senses so that you don't deal with your issues. And when that becomes the norm in education, where these devices become essentially like an addiction, that's why I call it an addiction.
You're right.
Then you are basically feeding an entire generation of kids addiction as the solution to any difficulty in life. And that is dangerous.
Very. And think about it. What happens if, I'm going to say, what if a solar storm hits the planet and all the phones go away? And then you have millions of people who don't even know what to do with themselves. They don't even know how to think. Right. What happens when they can't ask ChatGPT? And make no mistake, there's a good comment here as well, developing brains. Like brains are constantly developing. What happens to a brain if you're flooding it with dopamine all the time? It's going to become dependent. It's going to develop dependent on a constant stream of unlimited dopamine.
Right.
And what if that, you take that away? Like if this is going to be fixed, you need to have things in place to emotionally support an entire generation of addicts.
Right. Exactly.
Real extreme withdrawal. Like it's insane to think that we've gotten here so quickly, despite the science very clearly being shared with us.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure. The clips are really good, but I think it might be interesting to summarize some of the content in her video. Like, just read some of the, like, I've got bullet points here.
Yeah, please take it away. We can definitely do both. We got 20-ish, 20 minutes, and I'm almost done. I've got like 2 or 3 more that I think are important.
So I really appreciate that you've pulled out these teachers who are reporting on their life experiences, in the classroom. I think that kind of firsthand reporting is really important. But what Amber did in her podcast was to summarize in some really great language the issues and problems and results of these technologies and possible solutions. So let me just summarize. Actually, I'll just quote from certain sections in her podcast where she says, if we always have the answer, which is incredibly convenient because for the first time ever, us parents have responses to the endless stream of why. But convenience isn't always a good thing, because when we only ever supply this constant stream of direct answers, children begin to rely on that unwavering certainty, and they lose the friction that's needed to build resilience. The key word there being resilience. That's one thing that I've noticed over the last couple of decades, is that kids don't feel resilient at all. They feel like they have a problem, like they have a disease. I don't know how many kids I teach music to. At the first lesson, they say, I've got ADHD, or I've got OCD, or and they've got some kind of acronym that they can claim as their problem that will explain why they won't be able to learn very well from me. And I just think, wow, that's just so weird. I mean, when we were growing up, nobody would even say, I've got a cold. Like, people didn't want to be sick. They didn't want to be, and I understand it, there are learning problems. There are people with justifiable learning challenges. I have no question about it. But there's kind of a popular psychology I feel like that, where people feel like that's normal for you to be, everybody's neurodivergent. I'm not. Sorry, another Monty Python quote for those who are Monty Python fans.
Yeah, I was shown Monty Python in school. I think it's part of core curriculum. It's medieval history, medieval history, Holy Grail. Come on now.
It should be. So anyway, that's the point, is that when this lack of resilience becomes the norm, and everybody's supposed to feel disempowered, it's really bizarre. Anyway, she goes on to say a couple of bullet points here that kids in school today have zero problem-solving skills. They really believe, literally, ask ChatGPT, why should I try to solve the problem? The device will do that for me. The past paradigm, from a couple of decades ago probably, was a concept of helicopter parents. Parents drive their kids to school. They pick them up from school. They make sure they've done all their homework. They're constantly at their kids. They're keeping them in all sorts of activities, so that there's no rest for the child, which I completely disagree with. I think kids need downtime, free time that's not structured, so that they can actually use the thing up there. So this paradigm of the helicopter parent, well, now the parents are kind of free, because it's been replaced by technology. And now the hovering is done by GPS, by alerts, by AI generated to-do lists and projects, and every obstacle has been cleared out of the way before the child even sees the obstacle. So there is no resilience. They can't build up anything because they've never faced a problem. Everything is supposed to be solved for them by somebody else. And what agency do they have? They don't have to do anything. So kids are being encouraged to be blithering idiots. Like, it's dangerous. Yeah, she says, in our pursuit of convenience, we've accidentally made life harder for them because someone else will always have the right answer. And this is what she calls the certainty trap, that it's a modern habit of trying to remove all ambiguity and discomfort from a child's life.
Yeah.
And that has become like a kid feels that it is important for them to communicate to others the moment they feel discomfort. They always have to communicate, oh, I don't feel safe. I feel uncomfortable. And they are encouraged to seek this out and to make sure that they communicate to any adult that they're not comfortable and that they're not safe. So when you give kids the power to do that over parents, guess what? They use it. They don't know. Their brains aren't developed enough to know that that might be a problematic thing to do. They just think, oh, this is how I can have some control in this situation, because kids want desperately to have some kind of control, and they're not being given the tools to be able to do that in a healthy way. So lack of critical thinking skills. This is a great term that she used that I really like. What we are involved in by using this technology is cognitive offloading.
Yes, it's a huge thing.
Great term.
Yes.
Cognitive offloading. It's like, okay, adults, you don't want to think about it anymore. That's lazy. That's dangerous. That's not responsible. Because if you say to your kid, oh, your kid watches you and you offload your brain. Well, you're the role model. So what's the kid going to do? They're going to say, oh, that's what we're supposed to do, is offload our brain to a device. That's normal. So the result, so what parents should do is, get rid of the phone for a while, turn the iPad off, turn the technology off, go for a walk, go down by the sea, go, get out there and be with your kid and have a conversation with your kid, not them having a conversation with Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I would love to kind of talk about just that term a little bit as well, because I love that term. And it's a term that I've heard kind of, maybe I thought of the term before I heard her like say it, because it's like a trend, right? It's a thing. You can see it everywhere you go. As someone who, spent time trying to design more efficient ways to use AI, use less power, get less prompts, right? Things like that. I'm also very well aware of the caveats and the traps and the things that are built in. The thing that we're also seeing, and my partner works in an industry that's very tech heavy, it's marketing, and she's telling me, like, the people who work for me, suddenly I can just tell they're just giving me AI. Like, it's not even work, and they aren't doing things. They're getting worse at their job. It's pretty staggering how quickly your brain is willing to just throw up its hands and stop thinking.
Right.
And it's in children, it's worse because there's nothing to fall back on. If we take it away, you don't have those skills somewhere. They just were deprived from you.
Yeah.
If you're teaching children to cognitive offload, like with your parent, like you mentioned, like parenting, and she mentioned that, like, look up the thing. Well, let me ask Chat GPT. No, like she says that just say, I don't know. Like, that is a better thing to tell your kid than to find them the answer. And then she gives some examples, like about a parent giving their kids the opportunity to navigate them to their flight terminal at the airport, because that is more valuable to them than actually doing just using a device to get there.
Right.
And Substack is now loaded with AI writing. Like, even people I know was watching before, like, I'm like, dude, I know you didn't write this, like, it's like, okay, and in my mind, I think there is a world where you can have a balance of, if you just don't want to write a whole summary of a bunch of just things that are bullet points, sure. Okay. You know what? Like, if you're trying to get content out or whatever, but like, if there's zero humanity in it, we can tell. Like, it's not like people can't tell. And imagine when you're seeing that among these adults who were good writers, and now are not doing much writing, if they suddenly had to start writing again, it wouldn't be the same. You'd be like, what is it, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah, and so I think a really important point that you made, you used the expression, get the content out. Okay, so this is something that technologists desperately want for some reason. They seem to want, as though there's not enough people on the planet and enough stuff and enough ideas already circulating. They seem to have this idea that quantity is really important, not quality, quantity. I remember the Spotify CEO saying, well, you know, the problem with those people who aren't making much money on Spotify is that they're not busy making enough music. To which the real musician said, what do you mean? What do you think? You just burp it out or something? I mean, it takes production values. It takes time and money and effort. And you can't just burp the shit out every week. Oh, no, but Spotify CEO is saying, oh, the problem with independent artists is that they're not putting out enough content. Like, okay, you need lots of content, not good content, just lots of it. And this is the problem that I have with AI, writing especially, is you get these clearly AI written things that burp out a bunch of information and usually in a style that's easy to read and so on. Although I do get tired of bullet point everything. A sentence per paragraph, that's not writing. I learned how to write a paragraph, but AI does not know how to write paragraphs. It only writes news headlines, one after the next, right? And I can spot AI writing 100 miles away. And one of my sort of funny enjoyments these days on Substack is when you discover a piece of writing that's clearly, pretty well a lot AI, let's say, and then you get into a conversation with the author and you discover their real voice through their comments instead of through their actual writing, then you know that, hey, just a reminder, your personality is more interesting than the AI.
Yeah.
Right? And by the way, normalize I don't know was one of the last things she said in her podcast that it really hit me. Is like, normalize I don't know, say I don't know instead of I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Because I'll look it up means, okay, well, that's one effort that took you 3 seconds to, type it into a thing, into a search, and you got a result. But that doesn't mean you know anything. That means you've taken the first top result in your search. And what if that's actually an ad, or what if that's actually a compromised website that's got incentives to sell the product that you think you just got an honest opinion on, which is one of the most notorious things on the internet, of course. I can't even I can't research most products these days because you go and you see the top websites are always people who we are going to make a profit if you follow the link, right?
Yeah.
What's it called I forget what the word is, but these people are basically reviewing a product positively because they're going to make money through the affiliate link. That's what it's called.
Yes. Yep. Yeah,
Anyway.
It's the whole, like, I'm sponsored by this. I have a couple clips as well. I think that would be good. I think guys, John did a really good job of giving you guys the takeaways. I'm going to encourage you to go and watch the video though, and listen to all of her commentary, because if anything, this discussion is more of a primer for all of the things within it. And it's 30 minutes of your day, but you will walk away feeling like, oh, I should go talk to people about this, which is, what happened to us. So, this here is a teacher talking about how, they used to watch movies. And I remember when I was in school, and I feel the exact same way about what she's going to say here. So.
That was electric. You didn't care.
Tolerate anything slower or low stimulation anymore.
When I was in high school and you got to watch a movie, that was electric. You didn't care what movie. You didn't care what you had to do after. You got to watch a movie. We made it through 32 minutes of the movie. It's a 90. They were in here for 90. Oh, and then you're going to complain that I give you a worksheet? I give you a worksheet that's time-stamped. short answer question like that, I'm going to stop and explain to you because you can't even concept the movie because you can't.
This plays out in the classroom.
I thought that was my reaction too. I'm like, dude, Bill Nye, like, put on Bill Nye, and now, shout out to Bill Nye. He's now like the leader of the Planetary Society. Bill Nye's awesome. He's freaking cool.
Yeah.
People are requesting here. There's another clip here. We'll watch, and then the 2 sentences one. We'll go and find that because that is quite the clip here. But some of these teachers, it's really just, and that's one of the reasons I think you should go watch this, is seeing her using these teachers' anecdotes to support her video is very, very good.
The 2 sentences is shortly after this.
Yes.
Isn't the same anymore. It's just not. Used to be kids would listen to teachers simply because they were teachers. That was the respect of it all. Now, no, honey. I got to keep the kids constantly engaged. Not even just engaged, but almost overstimulated. The candy isn't even working anymore. Giving out candy for positive reinforcement doesn't even work anymore. They don't care about that. Girl, I'm using chimpanzini bananini just to get my kids' attention, just so they'll look at me. Hello, hello. Girl, bye. I got kids saying 6-7 repeatedly. They don't even know how to spell 6-7. Catching me doing this mid-lecture. Just to see if they're paying attention. You watching? Hello, we there? Girl, it's so bad now. It's so bad.
Going further, researchers are finding that Gen
See if we can find
She's so fast, and she's an example of what you have to do by talking that fast.
Yes.
That's an example of what she has to do to keep them entertained. Can you imagine?
Yeah. No, it's true. It's like
I never had a teacher who talked that fast ever.
No. I mean, like, okay, here you go. This guy, he's going to tell us the story, and then we'll also have him go through this here.
Students are struggling with. One of them saying giving up when something doesn't come immediately, asking questions immediately, not reading directions. As well, organizational skills. I can guarantee that I'll get 20 emails at 11 p.m. the night before a deadline. There are only a handful of kids in every grade who are organized. Lastly, one says reading directions. Even my smarty pants students don't do it.
This morning for the kids warm-up, they had to copy a sentence twice. Within a matter of 5 minutes, I had over 5 questions asking me to re-explain what was going on. And then one student, actually, I had to go up to and say, hey, why are you not writing anything? He goes, well, I don't really know what to do here. I said, well, you write the sentence twice. He said, so I have to fill up all the lines that are left? No, you just have to write the sentence twice. He goes, what do you mean? You copy that sentence word for word twice. Okay, so I only have to copy the sentence down 2 times. Yes. And I do it in these lines. Those are the only lines you have. And I don't have to fill up every line. You write the sentence twice.
While writing this, I also couldn't help but compare these kids' childhoods to my own.
After you cry, right? I mean, it is just, and then there's this, this one is pretty good here.
Oh, so funny. Yeah, this one's good too, yeah.
This one, yeah. That's what I thought. All right, here you go.
Experience in that in order to succeed in school.
We grew up where we still had to research things. Like, does anybody remember JSTOR? Actually having to go into the library and look up peer-reviewed articles and figuring out how to put the pieces of things together. Media literacy, all of those things were taught to us. We remember before having the instant access to Google, and then we also remember the after, where we still had to filter our results and understand that some things are biased. And apps like this are a direct contributor to the learned helplessness of the younger generation, because that's the target demographic for these apps. If things are not spoon-fed to them as fast as they can swipe, they just think it's too hard, it's too much work, I don't know where to find it.
While we all love to complain about how we don't.
Let's see, there's one more I think that was pretty, this lady, because this is interesting because she's not necessarily a teacher. She's, just in the workforce.
Yeah.
And I've had this experience. Okay. So as I was in the workforce, I've worked at a lot of different places. I was like, middle management at a restaurant. I was at Home Depot. I worked with all manner of people. I've done lots of things. And this is something I encountered. And after we watch it, I'll give a quick little anecdote. I love to tell people about this. And then, I'll pass it over to you, John, I think, to tie it up, put a bow on it, and we'll say goodbye. But I think this is an important one to watch too.
When you turn 18, and literacy can't be shortcut, downloaded, or summarized.
I also work at Taco Bell, and obviously Taco Bell hires like high school students, you know what I'm saying? And I only work there 1 day a week, but what I've noticed is that like the high school students that have been hired like in the last like year or so can't count money. Like they can't count change at all. Like so much so that they're not allowed to be on a drawer, because if they are, it will always be over or under. Like there's no way, and it's almost always under. You guys want to talk about, like, people want to talk about how the minimum wage should be like whatever, and it shouldn't be increased or whatever, because these people are just doing like entry level jobs or whatever. But this job is not entry level anymore. Like the entry level people cannot do this job anymore. You know, like kids are not even being taught well enough to work at Taco Bell.
Right.
Like, let that sink in. Like you're not hearing me. Kids are not being
taught well enough to work
at Taco Bell. Yeah.
You know,
and that's absolutely right. I mean, that's been around since the calculator, took over the brain for arithmetic, right? I remember, I was in a store and I don't know, it cost $2.50. I handed them a $5 bill and they couldn't give me $2.50 change. I was stunned. I said, really? You can't do that math? She pulled out a calculator.
It is one of those things too. I would say, like, to give you guys an idea too, my personal life. When I worked at Home Depot, I had a lot of people I worked with 20, 21, 22 years old, going through community college or whatever. And one of the people I worked with, I love the guy. He's like my favorite. Every time I needed help, I'd hit him up on the radio, be like, hey man, come on over. We got to move some tile. I spent a lot of time with this guy. And I talked to him a lot, and I'm like, how's school going? What are you doing? He says, oh, well, I'm writing a book report. I'm like, awesome. What book? And he's like, I mean, I don't like to read. I'm like, yeah, but reading's important. And he's like, oh, no, I'm not. And so I checked in with him the next day. And I'm like, so how was Brave New World? Did you enjoy it? Like, it's one of my favorite books of all time. Well, I didn't actually read it. I'm like, well, how did you do the book report? Well, I just used Spark Notes. And then I used the summary to write my paper. And I said, you do realize that that's the point of the book, that you're not supposed to give up your agency and do that, right? Like that they're going to know that you didn't read the book. He's like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah.
That's hilarious.
It's literally like, I'm one of those people where I won't pull punches. I'm like, you're dumb as hell, bro. Like you can go to the break room and reread those Spark Notes, my man, and maybe you'll have a chance. But read the last 20 pages of the book, maybe. But,
it's Monty Python, right? Life is Monty Python these days. It's hilarious. It's just too much.
Yeah.
So I think the key expression here that summarizes all of this really is learned helplessness. And that's what's going on here. People are not learning how to master things, how to invent things, how to become masters of their own destiny. They're not being prepared for the world. They're being taught that they are helpless. Yeah. And in a society that is being overrun by fascists and authoritarians who want the population to feel helpless, this does not help.
No.
So, get rid of the devices, get rid of the short-term things, get rid of the notes, read the books, go for a walk, slow down, give your kids time away from devices to have conversations with real people and to go out and listen to the birds.
Birds
or whatever.
That's cool. That's cool. Every time you go outside, you hear that chirping. That's a dinosaur. That's cool. The world is cool. The planet is cool. Everything's a mystery. Everything's history. It's a mystery. It all comes together. So, I really enjoyed this conversation. As much as it is kind of disheartening, I think that everyone here knows a kid, knows a parent, and what you have today now is the opportunity to go and bring this up, share this video, watch this video. And it all starts with, I think at the same time, these kids are deprived. You can also stimulate them with something new. So, make sure you guys go and support both of us. Go and subscribe to John to get his work. on social justice, on, you know, preserving what is human decency, as well as to get updates on his music, which is really cool. And he's constantly working on that as well. He's a busy man. So I'm always grateful for this hour or so that we get to spend together every couple weeks. So John, thank you for this conversation. And if you guys have time, you can go and subscribe to me as well. I do this, and I also do all kinds of other interesting things.
He works really hard too.
Yeah, I do my part.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Everybody,
go get Shane.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today for this dialogue. We'll see you next time, because of course the dialogue must continue.
Must continue.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.